Hi, welcome back to Journey with Job. And so far we have covered the initial aspects of Job. We've set the stage. In fact, we go straight back into this so that we can keep a progression. There's so much to cover. So we look here at our outlining, and we saw setting the stage, Job chapters 1 and 2, about Job's place of contentment, how everything was going great in his life. And then about Job's testing, starting with Satan's accusation. As God said, have you considered my servant Job? And that's when Satan said, well, sure, he trusts you, sure, because you've protected him and you guarded him. But yeah, let his possessions be hurt. Touch him in his family and all of the things that he has. You'll see he'll curse you to his face. And so God took Satan up on that deal and let him deal with him, but it failed. And so he came a second time and told him, and therefore God said again, okay, fine, because now he let him touch his physical body to cause him to have sickness. And Job's wife gives him the foolish counsel that he should just curse God and die. And now we're starting to see the arguments as his friends come. They spend 7 days with Job, looking at him in his suffering as he's in sackcloth and ashes and considering him. The arguments have begun. And we started out with Job expressing his sadness about what has happened, but not cursing God. And all that he's saying, he's still trusting God. And that brought us to the first round of arguments between Eliphaz and Job's reply. But we're still looking at Eliphaz. We only made it through chapter 4, so we're going to pick up right where we left off and go into the 5th chapter as we continue to hear what Eliphaz has to say, his opinion concerning Job's suffering and what it all means. And he says in verse 1 of Job chapter 5, call if you will, but who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Resentment kills a fool, and envy slays the simple. I myself have seen a fool taking root, but suddenly his house was cursed. His children are far from safety, crushed in court without a defender. The hungry consume his harvest, taking it even from among thorns. And the thirsty pant after his wealth, for hardship does not spring from the soil, nor does trouble sprout from the ground. Yet man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. But if I were you, I would appeal to God. I would lay my cause before him. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. He provides rain for the earth. He sends water on the countryside. The lowly he sets on high, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He thwarts the plans of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away. Darkness comes upon them in the daytime. At noon they grope as in the night. He saves the needy from the sword in their mouth. He saves them from the clutches of the powerful. So the poor have hope, and justice shuts its mouth. Blessed is the one whom God corrects, and so do not despise the discipline of the Almighty, for he wounds, but he also binds up. He injures, but his hands also heal. From 6 calamities he will rescue you. In 7 no harm will touch you. In famine he will deliver you from death, and in battle from the stroke of the sword. And you will be protected from the lash of the tongue, and need not fear when destruction comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine, and need not fear the wild animals. For you will have a covenant with the stones of the field, and the wild animals will be at peace with you. And you will know that your tent is secure. And you will take stock of your property and find nothing missing. And you will know that your children will be many, and your descendants like the grass of the earth. And you will come to the grave in full vigor, like sheaves gathered in season. And we have examined this, and it is true. So hear it and apply it to yourself. Here we see Eliphaz is speaking in this first round of arguments. He is the first person telling Job, responding to chapter 3. He's telling him all these things. And we see him painting a picture here that to Job that there must be some type of a responsibility on the part of Job, because he's comparing it, and he's not saying straight out, Job, I think you're bad and you did bad, but that he saw people made mistakes and foolish things. He's assuming that Job's difficulties, he's assuming that what Job is going through has something to do with something Job has done. And so this is what men do. This is what we do. We immediately assume that all calamity, all difficulty, all trials, all the bad things we go through in life are all about the bad that we do. But the entire book of Job is a focus on asking the question, why do these things happen? And Eliphaz is giving his opinion. And now he's spoken all this out, both chapters 4 and 5 to Job, and Job is now going to reply to him in the 6th chapter, and we begin in verse 1 there, listening to what Job has to say to him, where he says, and Job replied, if only my anguish could be weighed and all my misery be placed on the scales, it would surely outweigh the sand of the seas. No wonder my words have been impetuous. The arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks in their poison. God's terrors are marshaled against me. Does a wild donkey bray when it has grass, or an ox bellow when it has fodder? Is tasteless food eaten without salt? Or is there flavor in the sap of the mallow? I refuse to touch it. Such food makes me ill. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant what I hope for, that God would be willing to crush me, to let loose his hand and cut off my life. Then I would still have this consolation. My joy is unrelenting pain, that I had not denied the words of the Holy One. What strength do I have that I should still hope? What prospects that I should be patient? Do I have the strength of stone? Is my flesh bronze? Do I have any power to help myself now that success has been driven from me? Anyone who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. But my brothers are as undependable as intermittent streams, as the streams that overflow when darkened by thawing ice and swollen with melting snow, but that stop flowing in the dry season, and in the heat vanish from their channels. Caravans turn aside from their routes to go off into the wasteland and perish. The caravans of Tema look for water. The traveling merchants of Sheba look in hope. They are distressed because they had been confident. They arrive there only to be disappointed. Now you too have proved to be of no help. You see something dreadful and are afraid. Have I ever said, give something on my behalf, pay a ransom for me from your wealth, deliver me from the hand of the enemy, rescue me from the clutches of the ruthless? Teach me and I will be quiet. Show me what I have been wrong, or where I've been wrong. How painful are honest words. But what do your arguments prove? Do you mean to correct what I say and treat my desperate words as wind? You would even cast lots for the fatherless and barter away your friend. But now be so kind as to look at me. Would I lie to your face? Relent. Do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Here Job is responding to the words of his friend Eliphaz, and Job's response is pretty much saying that his words are like the waters of a water stream that dries up, and that when you need it and look for help and you want some consolation from man's wisdom, it turns out to be an empty stream. I don't know if you've ever been in that place. I'll tell you this. I, as a pastor, will have to concede that very often people in their time of suffering will come to me, and I refrain from giving opinions too swiftly, because I know often I will sound just like Eliphaz. I will be just a stream. Sometimes I just want to fill in words. This is what we all feel when we see somebody suffering. We all want to give an answer. When somebody is in calamity and difficulty and trials, we want to tell them the reasons why. And that's what Eliphaz is trying to do. But and honestly, when people do these things, when people speak all these words to you, even pastors, we would tend to want to assuage our own guilt for not being able to help someone in suffering by offering many words. But the words are not always built upon God's wisdom. That's why I always defer to God's words. I always defer to the book of Job. Look at this book. Read it carefully. As we're going through it, consider when you're in a time of suffering, does man have something to tell you? But it's important that we do listen to his mindset or his ideas. But here, Job is saying that, look, you come and you talk and you're telling me this. If there were not, can't you see that I'm in suffering? But these words that you're giving me, what does it do for me? How does it prosper me? How does it help me? You're being kind to me. Your presence is nice, but these words mean nothing to me. They're like the caravans of Tema that look for water. I'm desperately seeking some type of answer, and we're not receiving it because we arrive at the water space where there should be water. I come to you where there should be counsel, and I'm disappointed. And I would not be surprised. I will say this all the time. I'm sure many times people ask me for counsel and I give them my opinion and they are disappointed. It's not what they want to hear and it does not satisfy them. Well, I tell you what, I have never claimed to have the sum total of God's knowledge and sovereign words in my mouth or in my heart. I do not know it all. I concede to the fact that I am greatly ignorant, and in all my knowledge of scriptures and all my years of study, I cannot explain many plights and many moments of suffering. But if God explains to us, fine. If somebody has greater wisdom than me, I certainly want to hear it. But here Job is looking for a friend to help him. And he's saying, what do you come in here? You just kind of correct what I say? Don't you see who I am? Don't you understand? Is there any wickedness in my lips that I say the wrong things? Can my mouth not discern malice, he's saying? And so here he is not content with the first round of argument from Eliphaz, and he responds to it this way, speaking to him. But he goes on, of course, now continuing in Job chapter 7. Job continues to talk, and now he continues to tell Eliphaz about what Eliphaz has offered to him, all that we just saw. And he says here in verse 1, Job chapter 7, do not mortals have hard service on earth? Are not their days like those of hired laborers, like a slave longing for the evening shadows, or a hired laborer waiting to be paid? So I have been allotted months of futility, and nights of misery have been assigned to me. When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on, and I toss and turn until dawn. My body is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin is broken and festering. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and they come to an end without hope. Remember, O God, that my life is but a breath. My eyes will never see happiness again. The eye that now sees me will see me no longer. You will look for me, but I will be no more. As a cloud vanishes and is gone, so also, or so one who goes down to the grave does not return. He will never come to his house again. His place will know him no more. Therefore, I will not keep silent. I will speak out in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or the monster of the deep that you put me under guard? When I think my bed will comfort me and my couch will ease my complaint, even then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I prefer strangling and death rather than this body of mine. I despise my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone. My days have no meaning. What is mankind that you make so much of them, that you give them so much attention, that you examine them every morning and test them every moment? Will you never look away from me or let me alone even for an instant? If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You who see everything we do. Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my offenses and forgive my sins? For I will soon lie down in the dust. You will search for me and I will be no more. Here Job very clearly stating in his discussion in chapters 6 and 7 all that he responds to Eliphaz. And we see him now beginning to believe that possibly, see his mind starting to change little by little, that if he's done something wrong, why don't you pardon my offenses and forgive my sins? As he's talking to Eliphaz, he's also turning to God Almighty and making it prayer. If I've sinned, what have I done to you? You see everything we do, he told God. What have you made me your target? Have you singled me out for this torture? And these are the things that go through our mind when we're in a place of suffering or when things don't go right. Which, by the way, God is not worried about Job's arguments. He wants to hear it. If you do not hear someone's erroneous thoughts and ideas, you cannot possibly help them to grow. You cannot bring correction. And God draws opinions out of us just so that he can sharpen us and change us. And this is what Job is learning. But Job now is going to continue. We have so much to go through where he's just continuing to talk about these issues. But elementally, he's covering all these different ideas that he speaks out of his anguish. Your voice of anguish has a louder tenor to it. It is a greater manifestation of the human heart. In fact, you don't really know someone until they're suffering. You don't really understand someone until they're in the hard place, in the difficult moment. Am I the sea or the monster of the deep that you put me under guard? He feels that it is a type of a trapping that God is doing in his life. And these words he's saying, of course, there his friends are all together with him. And this is Eliphaz, but now Bildad comes. Bildad is the second friend in this group, and this is in Job chapter 8 and verses 1 and on. Let's read the scripture now. Job says this, he makes a sigh, and his next friend in the circle, remember we saw as we're sitting there in the midst of them, listening to their words and what they have to say. Now we listen to Bildad. Then Bildad the Shuhite replied, "How long will you say such things? Your words are blustering wind. Does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? When your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin. But if you will seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your beginnings will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. Ask the former generation and find out what their ancestors learned. For we were born only yesterday and know nothing, and our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not instruct you and tell you? Will they not bring forth words from their understanding? Can papyrus grow tall where there is no marsh? Can reeds thrive without water? While still growing and uncut, they wither more quickly than grass. Such is the destiny of all who forget God. So perishes the hope of the godless. What they trust in is fragile. What they rely on is a spider's web. They lean on the web, but it gives way. They cling to it, but it does not hold. They are like a well-watered plant in the sunshine, spreading its shoots over the garden. It entwines its roots around a pile of rocks and looks for a place among the stones. But when it is torn from its spot, that place disowns it and says, I never saw you. Surely its life withers away, and from the soil other plants grow. Surely God does not reject one who is blameless, or strengthen the hands of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Your enemies will be clothed in shame, and the tents of the wicked will be no more. So here Bildad speaks in his wisdom. And this is from his perspective. Notice that Bildad immediately from the beginning of his discourse believes that Job is in the wrong. Eliphaz started with that assumption. Now Bildad is saying it right. Man, you just need to repent. If you seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you're pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf. He's assuming that Job's not having done this. And he's saying that, yes, you will be blessed. Actually, what he's speaking is true. He's saying that there will be a time of prosperity, and your beginning will seem humble compared to your latter end. More prosperous will be your future than your past. And these are all promises we have in scriptures. But I tell you what, when you're in the midst of suffering, that's the last thing you really want to hear, because it's just words. You ever notice that when you are in a difficult place or in a time of need and you don't have the things that are necessary, or you are sick and you conjecture, or someone tells you it's going to get better, that's not really what you want to hear. You're not really looking for hope in a better tomorrow. You just want to make it through and learn everything you can in the now. Why am I going through what I'm going through? I don't know. But what can I learn from it? One thing that we can learn is God and we are not, and that's the entire process going here. But here he's telling Job, Bildad's telling Job that he must be wrong, and telling him that he's depending on the wrong ideals and principles, that he must turn to God. Of course, Job was turning to God, and he is speaking, but he's telling him everything's going to be all right. That's basically what he's saying. It's going to be all right, Job. Everything's going to be all right. And I tell you what, when I'm going through a difficult time, I can't stand when somebody pats me on the back and says, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. I want to slap them in the face, because it's not what I want to hear in that moment. Sometimes it's good to be miserable. Sometimes it's good. Punishment is valuable, even if we don't see it necessarily as punishment. The hard times are what forge our character and who we are and where we're going. So Bildad is speaking to him, and now Job is going to reply to the words he just said in Job chapter 9, and we go right into it, where it says, he replies, "Indeed, I know this is true." What he's saying to Bildad is, come on, Bildad, who doesn't know this? But how can mere mortals prove their innocence before God? Yeah, you're telling me I need to ask God to forgive me and tell him that I'm innocent, but how can I possibly prove that? Though they wished to dispute with him, they could not answer him one time out of 1,000. His wisdom is profound. His power is vast. Who has resisted him and come out unscathed? He moves mountains without their knowing it, and overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth from its place and makes its pillars tremble. He speaks to the sun, and it does not shine. He seals off the light of the stars. He alone stretches out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. He is the maker of the Bear and the Orion, the Pleiades and the constellations of the south. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. When he passes me, I cannot see him. When he goes by, I cannot perceive him. If he snatches away, who can stop him? Who can say to him, what are you doing? God does not restrain his anger. Even the cohorts of Rahab cowered at his feet. How then can I dispute with him? How can I find words to argue with him? Though I were innocent, I could not answer him. I could only plead with my judge for mercy. Even if I summoned him and he responded, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. He would not let me catch my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery. If it is a matter of strength, he is mighty. If it is a matter of justice, who can challenge him? Even I, if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. If I were blameless, it would pronounce me guilty. Although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, he mocks the despair of the innocent. When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? My days are swifter than a runner. Then they fly away without a glimpse of joy. They skim past like boats of papyrus, like eagles swooping down on their prey. If I say, I will forget my complaint, I will change my expression and smile, I still dread all my sufferings. For I know you will not hold me innocent. Since I am already found guilty, why should I struggle in vain? Even if I wash myself with soap and my hands with cleansing powder, you would plunge me into a slime pit, so that even my clothes would detest me. He is not a mere mortal like me, that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there were someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it is now stands with me, I cannot. And here, in this chapter, he's speaking, making it clear to Bildad what he feels and what he's trying to say. And we're going to go straight into the next chapter because he's continuing with his rant here. We want to gather it all at one time. I loathe my very life, he says. Therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I say to God, do not declare me guilty, but tell me what charges you have against me. Does it please you to oppress me, to spurn the work of your hands while you smile on the plans of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh? Do you see as a mortal sees? Are your days like those of a mortal, or your years like those of a strong man, that you must search out my faults and probe after my sin? Though you know that I am not guilty and that no one can rescue me from your hand. Your hands shaped me and made me. And will you now turn and destroy me? Remember that you molded me like clay. Will you now turn me to dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese, clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews? You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence watched over my spirit. But this is what you concealed in your heart. And I know that this was in your mind. If I sinned, you would be watching me and would not let my offense go unpunished. If I am guilty, woe to me. Even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. If I hold my head high, you stalk me like a lion, and again display your awesome power against me. You bring new witnesses against me and increase your anger toward me. Your forces come against me wave upon wave. When they did, you bring me out of the womb. I wish I had died before any eye saw me. If only I had never come into being or had been carried straight from the womb to the grave. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me so I can have a moment's joy before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and utter darkness, to the land of deepest night, of utter darkness and disorder, where even the light is like darkness. Job responding to Bildad, telling him all that he feels. I like that two times, both in these chapters 9 and 10, he very clearly states that he is not worthy. Even if he is worthy in his own eyes, he's making a very good judgment here. He's saying that even if I'm innocent, I am not innocent. Even if I'm right, I'm not right. And what he means by that is, even if I see myself as right and innocent, I know that it's not possible for man to be right and innocent. And no matter how good they are, there must be fault with them. I think it's a safe perspective to see things. Later, we already know that Job will be vindicated by God. But Job now is just starting in his defense, in his words. It's going to get worse. Then later he will bring accusations against God that get deeper and deeper, that God must remedy, must come to fix. Right now we see him speaking, first to Eliphaz, now to Bildad, and each of them giving their opinions. But now the next one comes, who is Zophar. And Zophar is going to speak to him from his perspective. We're going around the ring again. Remember, they're sitting outside, and they're all talking. First spoke Eliphaz, then Bildad, and Job is responding to each one of them. But now we go to Zophar, and Zophar speaks up what he feels and says, he's the Nahumite. Zophar the Nahumite replied, are all these words to go unanswered? Is this talker to be vindicated? Will your idle talk reduce others to silence? Will no one rebuke you when you mock? You say to God, my beliefs are flawless and I am pure in your sight. Oh, how I wish that God would speak, that he would open his lips against you and disclose to you the secrets of wisdom, for true wisdom has two sides. Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sin. Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above. What can you do? They are deeper than the depths below. What can you know? Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. If he comes along and confines you in prison and convenes a court, who can oppose him? Surely he recognizes deceivers, and when he sees evil, does he not take note? But the witless can no more become wise than a wild donkey's colt can be born human. Yet if you devote your heart to him and stretch out your hands to him, if you put away the sin that is in your hand and allow no evil to dwell in your tent, then free of fault, you will lift up your face and you will stand firm and without fear, and you will surely forget your trouble, recalling it only as waters gone by. Life will be brighter than noonday, and darkness will become like morning. You will be secure because there is hope, and you will look about you and take your rest in safety. You will lie down with no one to make you afraid, and many will court your favor, but the eyes of the wicked will fail, and escape will elude them. Their hope will become a dying gasp. So here, Zophar says exactly what he feels to him, and now Job responds to Zophar. Note that the words of Zophar are a lot like Bildad's words and a lot like Eliphaz's words. It is all consistent with the idea that every trial and difficulty is for a season, and that God ultimately would do the right thing. They're all consistently saying that, Job, you must be wrong somewhere, whether you see it or not. And they're continuing to conjecture along those lines. And now Eliphaz has spoken, Bildad has spoken, now Zophar. Now this is in chapters 12, 13, and 14. Job gives this long discourse replying to Zophar. And let's read that. And Job replied, doubtless you are the only people who matter, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Of course, by the way, this is sarcasm. I love that Job uses it. Doubtless, I mean, you must be the only people that really matter, right? And that wisdom will die with you. You're the wisest ever. Well, no, it's not true. I have a mind as well as you. I'm not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? You guys are speaking stuff that everybody already knows. I've become a laughingstock to my friends. Though I called on God and he answered, a mere laughingstock. Though righteous and blameless, those who are at ease have contempt for misfortune as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. The tents of marauders are undisturbed, and those who provoke God are secure. Those God has in his hand. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test words, and the tongue tastes food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? To God belong wisdom and power. Counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. Those he imprisons cannot be released. If he holds back the waters, there is drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. To him belong strength and insight. Both deceived and deceiver are his. He leads rulers away, stripped, and makes fools of judges. He takes off the shackles put on by kings and ties a loincloth around their waist. He leads priests away, stripped, and overthrows officials long established. He silences the lips of trusted advisors and takes away the discernment of elders. He pours contempt on nobles and disarms the mighty. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings utter darkness into the light. He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. He deprives the leaders of the earth of their reason. He makes them wander in a trackless waste. They grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like drunkards. My eyes have seen all this. My ears have heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I'm not inferior to you, but I desire to speak to the Almighty and to argue my case with God. You, however, smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians, all of you. And if only you would be altogether silent, for you, that would be wisdom. Hear now my argument. Listen to the pleas of my lips. Will you speak wickedly on God's behalf? Will you speak deceitfully for him? Will you show him partiality? Will you argue the case of God? Would it turn out well if he examined you? Could you deceive him as you might deceive a mortal? He would surely call you to account if you secretly showed partiality. Would not his splendor terrify you? Would not the dread of him fall on you? Your maxims are proverbs of ashes. Your defenses are defenses of clay. Keep silent and let me speak. Then let come to me what may. Why do I put myself in jeopardy and take my life in my hands? Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. Indeed, this will turn out for my deliverance, and no godless person would dare come before him. Listen carefully to what I say. Let my words ring in your ears. Now that I have prepared my case, I know I will be vindicated. Can anyone bring charges against me? If so, I will be silent and die. Only grant me these two things, God, and then I will not hide from you. Withdraw your hand far from me and stop frightening me with your terrors. Then summon me and I will answer. Or let me speak and you reply to me. How many wrongs and sins have I committed? Show me my offense and my sin. Why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy? Will you torment a wind-blown leaf? Will you chase after dry chaff? For you write down bitter things against me and make me reap the sins of my youth. You fasten my teeth in shackles and you keep close watch on all my paths, putting marks on the soles of my feet. So man wastes away like something rotten, like a garment eaten by moths. Mortals born of woman are a few days and are full of trouble. They spring up like flowers and wither away. Like fleeting shadows, they do not endure. Do you fix your eye on them? Will you bring them before you for judgment? Who can bring what is pure from the impure? No one. A person's days are determined. You have decreed the number of his months and have set limits he cannot exceed. So look away from him and let him alone till he has put in his time like a hired laborer. At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. But a man dies and is laid low. He breathes his last and is no more. As the water of a lake dries up or a riverbed becomes parched and dry, so he lies down and does not rise till the heavens are no more. People will not awake or be roused from their sleep. If only you would hide me in the grave and conceal me till your anger has passed. If only you would set me a time and then remember me. If someone dies, will they live again? All the days of my hard service I will wait for my renewal to come. You will call and I will answer you. You will long for the creature your hands have made. Surely then you will count my steps, but not keep track of my sin. My offenses will be sealed up in a bag, and you will cover over my sin. But as a mountain erodes and crumbles, and as a rock is moved from its place, as water wears away stones and torrents wash away the soil, so you destroy a person's hope. You overpower them once for all, and they are gone. You change their countenance and send them away. If their children are honored, they do not know it. If their offspring are brought low, they do not see it. They feel but the pain of their own bodies and mourn only for themselves. Here Job pours it all out, chapters 12 through 14, in response to Zophar. And in the midst of this, he said something extremely important, one of the most important verses that he speaks, where he says that though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. This is one of the most important parts of Job, and it is one of the greatest things that we must take from Job, is that Job had a determination that no matter what, even if God kills him, he is going to stay submitted to the principles of God. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. We will speak out. Come, let's reason together. As God says, we do speak and we reason about our feelings and our ideas. It's important that we speak it all out. And now he's challenging, and so are his friends. They're all challenging that God speak. And if they do this long enough, God will speak. And this is exactly what happens in the book of Job. Later we're going to hear God himself talk and give wisdom. But here, man is thinking. It takes first our thoughts and our questions and our wonderings about God and what God has to say before the time comes that God responds and speaks to us clearly. And so here in this outline we see that Job replies. That's the first round of the many rounds that make up the whole center section, the first part of the center section of this book, as we see in our outlining here, that Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar have all spoken, and Job has responded. But now we're coming into the second round of arguments, because these arguments played out relatively quickly, I believe. I don't know how long. I think this was continued discussion. I mean, we speak a lot of words in a little bit of time. So I want to go right into the second round of arguments by looking at Eliphaz speak again, now in Job chapter 15. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "Would a wise person answer with empty notions or fill their belly with the hot east wind? Would they argue with useless words, with speeches that have no value? But you even undermine piety and hinder devotion to God. Your sin prompts your mouth. You adopt the tongue of the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, not mine. Your own lips testify against you. Are you the first man ever born? Were you brought forth before the hills? Do you listen in on God's counsel? Do you have a monopoly on wisdom? What do you know that we do not know? What insights do you have that we do not have? The gray-haired and aged are on our side. Men even older than your father. Are God's consolations not enough for you? Words spoken gently to you? Why has your heart carried you away, and why do your eyes flash so that you vent your rage against God and pour out such words from your mouth? What are mortals that they could be pure, or those born of women that they could be righteous? If God places no trust in his holy ones, if even the heavens are not pure in his eyes, how much less mortals who are vile and corrupt, who drink up evil like water? Listen to me, and I will explain to you. Let me tell you what I have seen, what the wise have declared, hiding nothing received from their ancestors, to whom alone the land was given when no foreigners moved among them. All his days the wicked man suffers torment, the ruthless man through all the years stored up for him. Terrifying sounds fill his ears. When all seems well, marauders attack him. He despairs of escaping the realm of darkness. He is marked for the sword. He wanders about for food like a vulture. He knows the day of darkness is at hand. Distress and anguish fill him with terror. Troubles overwhelm him like a king poised to attack, because he shakes his fist at God and vaunts himself against the Almighty, defiantly charging against him with a thick, strong shield. Though his face is covered with fat and his waist bulges with flesh, he will inhabit ruined towns and houses where no one lives, houses crumbling to rubble. He will no longer be rich and his wealth will not endure, nor will his possessions spread over the land. He will not escape the darkness. A flame will wither his shoots, and the breath of God's mouth will carry him away. Let him not deceive himself by trusting what is worthless, for he will get nothing in return. Before his time, he will wither, and his branches will not flourish. He will be like a vine stripped of its unripe grapes, like an olive tree shedding its blossoms. For the company of the godless will be barren, and fire will consume the tents of those who love bribes. They conceive trouble and give birth to evil. Their womb fashions deceit. Here he's speaking now, Eliphaz, about those wicked men in this world, those kings and rulers that come and attack, and even though they conquer. And he's also, again, arguing with Job about the fact that, is Job the sole proprietor of all wisdom? You don't think that we know what you know? Don't you think that our counsel will be amongst the people with gray hair, people as old or older than your own father? Don't their wisdom dictate all these same things that you're speaking? And this is what happens in life as we begin to know the Word of God further and further. And I'll tell you something about the Job principle that I have found. Often as believers, we come to know Christ in the beginning, and there's kind of a honeymoon of our experience where everything works out great, and it's all smiles and happiness, and God does that on purpose to give us time to grow. It's kind of like the nurturing of a baby in his arms, and he rocks us, but eventually we have to grow. Discipline has to come, and he allows hardship to do this. And this is where these men had great wisdom and had seen many things, and Job also lived a full life in relation to God. And if you listen to their words are accurate. God is great. God is powerful. We are nothing and God is everything. But their conjecturing goes on and on and on in a futile attempt to make some sense of what's taking place in Job's life. And Job is not impressed. The arguing continues back and forth. They're all longing to hear a word from God. What is God going to say to this? And now this second round starts again. I don't know where he gets the energy, covered with all these sores and these problems. And I don't know where his friends get the gall and the energy to speak to him in this capacity. But the words of a friend, they wound and they are faithful, the Bible says. Faithful wounds. In other words, it's better that people speak truth to you in love and concern for you than they just placate you with some flattering words just to try to get on your good side. That's not the word of truth. That's not the side of truth. And what is truth, though, in this case? All of them are trying to come up with some words that may be a type of truth that will help Job. And this second round is just like the first round, just getting deeper into these ideas and these issues. And we're going to see this descent as we go from the second round and then to the third round. And there's still a lot to cover here. But we're going to plow through it straight like this and read it as if we're present. I'm not going to do a lot of explanation of it because it is not meant to be explained. It's the thing about Job. You can go into all the ancillary or secondary adjunct ideas and explanations all you want. But the bottom line, what it's saying is so clear and simple. Take it at face value and listen to it. And that's how we're going to continue to read it. But before we do that, we'll take a small break here. And then after the break, we'll come back and continue on our lessons here in Journey with Job.